I'm back. Today we're going to be talking about something that recently caught my interest, something that my good friend Asher brought up to me. Karna versus Heracles, the hero of charity versus the immortal great hero. I thought it would be an interesting matchup to break down, especially considering their abilities and their strengths. So with all that being said, let's hop right into it. We'll start with Karna, who is both confusing yet a known powerhouse. The reason his inverse scaling leads to confusion is because he'll be compared to characters like Gilgamesh himself at full power, then be compared to characters like Gawain. This isn't to say that Gawain is weak, but I don't believe that he's on the same level of power as Artoria, for example, who's just blatantly weaker than Gilgamesh. Like, for example, Lancelot, who was able to fight off Gawain until the sunset, and then even kill Gawain during that night, considers Artoria invincible. This isn't surprising either, since Artoria is generally considered the strongest saber, so it isn't inconsistent for her to operate on a different tier that surpasses Gawain entirely. This does, however, give us a range to estimate his strength from, as we know that Karna is generally considered the strongest servant in Apocrypha, with only the exception of Achilles being relative to him. Achilles being a hero that is second or equal to Heracles. Not only that, but Ruler also considers him dangerous beyond compare, with Karna willing to take both her and Siegfried on at the same time, and he believes he's still coming out on top. This isn't just something he pulled out of his ass either, considering Achilles fought both Fran and Siegfried at once and wasn't struggling at all, even laughing and calling them weak. This is the same Siegfried that can box both Sigurd and Brunhilde. I probably butchered her name, sorry for that. But anyway, both of which are on par with top servants. Brunhilde herself being the strongest Valkyrie and the closest one to becoming a true goddess. And Karna could just beat up Siegfried, who could box both of them. Karna being stated to have a level of skill that has far reached into the realm of the gods, surpassing humanity in just terms of pure skill. From this, I will lean towards the interpretation that Karna is on par with Gilgamesh, since he is relative to Achilles, who is in turn relative to Heracles, with Heracles in turn being relative to Gilgamesh. So all roads lead to Rome. This places Karna somewhere in that general tier of power. Since I'll be discussing Heracles later, I'll just move on to Karna's abilities. Karna's main ability, which everybody knows of, is Karna's armor, which can reduce any damage that he receives by 90%. So in actuality, he only takes 10% of the damage. He also possesses fire manipulation due to him being the son of the sun god, being able to create weapons and cutting himself and his own weapons within fire, which amps his own attacks, and he uses fire mana burst constantly on his weapon. He also possesses other noble phantasms, though if I'm being honest, the only one of real note is his main weapon, Vasavi, which embodies extinction itself. In Indian myth, it is said to represent the end of all things. It is an anti-divine, anti-god weapon, capable of killing the gods in a single strike. The higher the target's divinity, the more vulnerable they are to Vasavi. Sorry if I butchered the name, but I'm talking about the nigga's spear. That's it. Anyway, we can move on to Heracles. Heracles at full power is on par with full power Artoria and is considered equal to Achilles. He is also comparable in strength to Artoria Alter, who is stronger than even normal full power Artoria. It is even debated by Rin whether Gilgamesh is significantly stronger than him. I mean, obviously Gilgamesh is significantly stronger than him, but it's to emphasize the fact that they're on the same tier. Now I could go on and on about Heracles' physicals, but the problem with that is, based on what I've already shown so far, they should already be relative or comparable. So instead, we need to look at him from the perspective of skills and abilities. In terms of skill, he has no real tactics due to his madness, meaning he lacks any carefully thought out strategies. Even so, he is stated to possess superior combat skill compared to every other servant. Since the statement is being made in the context of the Fifth Holy Grail War, it should be taken within said framework. Even so, it's still impressive if we take it hyper literally. It would imply that he surpasses the likes of Sasaki Kyojuro and Artoria in terms of raw combat skill. That means his skill should be in the realm of the gods as well. However, I still think it is somewhat lower than Karna's, because I don't even agree that he surpasses Sasaki Kyojuro in pure skill. Even if he did, this statement is in reference to what was said in the Fifth Holy Grail War, so any statements about Sasaki's swordsmanship outside of this wouldn't be relevant. So his god tier skill won't be mentioned as much. Even though it is mentioned still, it's only in reference to Tsubame Geshi. So it seems like a stretch to claim that Heracles is superior to the man Artoria considers invincible in terms of technique, or the narrator considers an invincible swordsman. Now in terms of abilities, thanks to God Hand, you can automatically nullify any attack below A rank. Only attacks that equal his own strength can even remotely harm him, and any wounds that he sustains that aren't fatal to Heracles will be healed within minutes. As long as he has remaining lives, he can continue to regenerate. He has 12 lives, by the way, and can regenerate 12 times before finally succumbing to death. He also cannot be killed by the same attack twice, meaning he has to be killed in 12 different ways. But really, other than this, he doesn't really have any additional or noteworthy abilities. So let's move on to who would actually win the fight. I think the first thing we need to address is the skill gap, which is solidly in Karna's favor. His skill having reached a divine level far beyond anything attainable by humans. The only statement that puts Heracles in a similar realm of skill is the extra material claiming that he has greater skill than every servant. I'm not sure if that's true. If his skill were truly that overwhelming, it's odd that none of the characters even mention it directly. So in terms of skill, I will give that advantage to Karna. The next question is whether or not they can actually harm each other. Heracles can definitely harm Karna, but Karna harming Heracles is a bit more debatable. The main reason it's debatable is that Karna struggled, though not heavily, to injure Siegfried, who essentially has a weaker version of Heracles' defensive abilities. Siegfried's armor blocks anything below B rank. His invulnerability even nullified some of Karna's attacks, which were all the way up to A rank in the first place. With 78 of Karna's strikes failing to do significant damage to him, this could be a problem when dealing with Heracles. However, Karna can raise his damage output to A rank or higher, and Vasabi Sati, with its anti-divine properties, could potentially bypass Heracles' negation abilities. That said, this gets into more speculative territory, so I'll keep it simple and just assume that Karna can harm Heracles just with difficulty and vice versa. I also think it's possible for Karna to completely obliterate Heracles using his high-powered anti-divine noble phantasm. Karna could potentially just wipe out all 12 lives of Heracles at once. We already know this is possible since Heracles could have lost all of his lives instantly to Caliburn. So that means that's a potential threat and a large one at that. So in my personal opinion, Karna likely wins with a ratio around 60-40 in Karna's favor. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed and peace out.